The mana starts with a prophecy. 10 years from now, the Eastern Kingdom will collapse, destroyed by the 5 great sins: wrath, greed, pride, sloth, and obsession. But our main guy already knows the ending because he played it as a game. He was an overworked office slave grinding 78-hour weeks until one day he woke up in silk sheets, servants bowing, everyone calling him young master. At first, he thinks he's won the reincarnation lottery. No deadlines, no ramen dinners, just luxury. Then a maid mentions his last name, Palacio, and the dream snaps. In the game, the Palacio family ran drugs, brothel, and corruption deep enough to drown nobles. They were the first to die when the 5 sins appeared, and now he's their third son, the extra villain with no powers and no future. Still, he laughs. Because if fate handed him spoilers, why not use them? He may be weak, but he's got something stronger than magic. Office worker logic. He knows the world going to fall because the 5 sins start as kids. So maybe he can change them before they break the world. Easy plan, right? 2 months later, he's running an orphan rescue project like a CEO, freeing test subject from a secret lab, and leaving their care to a quiet girl named Yusha. His knight, Evan, stands beside him, loyal, stone-faced, built like a wall. Alan, that's the name he's using now, pretends to act noble even though he still eats like a convenience store clerk. But Yusha isn't normal. In the original story, she grows up to become Wrath, one of the 5 great sins who kills hundreds of thousands. Now she's just a silent orphan staring through cracked windows, unaware she's destined to destroy everything. Alan decides to rewrite her fate. Keep her safe, keep her calm, no wrath, no apocalypse. He leaves her at the orphanage and sends a letter filled with reassurance and one strange line from a spell he remembers from the game. Agony of the dark, impassivity of the bright, belonging with the fall. In the game, that phrase triggered her rampage. Maybe this time it'll stop it. When Yusha reads it, the air vibrates, but as she holds the letter, her eyes soften. She reads the words, "Not yet time," and smiles. For the first time in her life, she actually smiles. Somewhere far away, Alan sneezes and tells himself he just dodged fate. 1 down, 4 to go. For now, the night is quiet. The world's still spinning like it hasn't been rewritten. He exhales, almost convinced this new life might work out. "I'll fix the next one too," he whispers. And just like that, the future of the kingdom hangs on a burned-out office worker who never finished the tutorial. Alan wakes up with that gut feeling again. The kind that says, today's the day my family finds a new way to ruin my life. Papers are scattered, books toppled, and his servant, Evan, walks in carrying bad news and mild confusion. Turns out the Palacio household is running on chaos. The eldest brother, Leo, the perfect heir with the personality of a guillotine, and the middle brother, Tonio, a living pharmacy who's somehow still alive. Alan sits there sipping tea, pretending not to exist, while watching 2 disasters argue over who gets to inherit a collapsing empire of corruption. He quickly summarizes his situation in his head. One brother's a prostitution king, the other's a drug king, and he's the background character praying to survive the episode. He mutters under his breath, "I can't mess with these 2 fingers for the sake of my sweet life," and decides that playing weak might actually be his strongest strategy. The door bursts open. Tonio stomping in with his usual smug grin, grabbing Alan by the collar, mocking him for holding a book. "Why isn't illiterate like you pretending to read?" he says, laughing like someone who's never paid taxes. Before Alan can reply, a sharp chill floods the room. Leo's entered, towering in his crimson coat, radiating authority that smells like murder. The air freezes as Leo calls Tonio a disgrace and Alan an insect. A knife flies, books scatter, and Alan instinctively bows, swearing eternal uselessness just to stay alive. In his head, he's already made the decision. "I'll live happily as a weak and incompetent bastard child." It's the safest play in a house built on crime and ego. When the shouting finally ends, Evan reports that they've rescued another child from the illegal slave market. Alan, rubbing his temples, asks the name and freezes when he hears it. Deos McCallion. His eyes widen. Number not him. In the game, Deos was the second boss, the embodiment of sloth, once a hero, later a walking apocalypse. Alan tries to act calm, muttering. The second child didn't seem ordinary, but the truth hits harder than he'd like. This boy was tortured, enslaved, and broken until he decided the world didn't deserve effort. Of all people, Alan thinks, why this one? He knows what comes next. The boy will eventually burn everything, and Alan's name will be somewhere in the ashes. Still, he sends Dias to Yusha's orphanage, instructing Evan to treat him like a saint. "Be kind to him," Alan says. "No experiments, no fear." That night, He writes to Yusha with false cheer. Take care of the slightly sick child I sent. He's quiet, maybe too quiet. Then he jokes at the end, my brother used me as a footrest again, but I'm adapting. Yusha, somewhere under the same moonlight, smiles faintly and writes back. Meanwhile, Deo sits beneath that same moon, silent and blank, his small hands trembling. A pale woman approaches, silver hair, red eyes, voice like velvet dipped in poison. You survived the black goat, she whispers. You're chosen by the great moon. Power swirls around him, purple light twisting the air. She calls him a miracle, tells him to embrace his new gift, to feel it, to let it grow. If you follow his order, she says, you shall have your revenge. Her eyes shimmer, her hand extends, and the boy, broken, empty, accepts. Energy blooms, light tears across the sky, and a dark oath is born in the name of the blue moon. Far away, Alan sleeps uneasily, unaware he's just given kindness to the very seed of destruction. Days blur. Alan dives back into research, hunting for clues about the next sin. He flips through books, mumbling, GH just where's the third boss? When Evan bursts in, panic written all over him. Big trouble, young master. That scum. Antonio, he's dead. Alan blinks. Already? He rushes to confirm. And sure enough, Tonio and LT, Unk and GT, as corpse lies cold. His fall declare an accident. At the funeral, nobles cry fake tears while Leo smirks like a man who just skipped a side quest. Alan watches from the back, murmuring, a dark fantasy world indeed. In the original timeline, Tonio died years later, killed by Leo in a drunken war. Now the game's rewriting itself early, out of sequence, and Alan can't tell if it's his fault or fate cleaning up. Leo inherits Tonio's assets and celebrates by expanding the drug trade, calling it business consolidation. A year passes and Alan plays the quiet observer. The county grows peaceful, crime slows, and he even starts exchanging friendly letters with UTI. She writes about the orphanage's growth, about Deo's playing with the other kids, about hope returning. Alan reads her letters with a half smile. Maybe I really am changing things. One afternoon, Evan mentions an old contact found a lead, an ancient manuscript about the third sin. Alan's eyes light up. Really? That's a relief. For once, things are going smoothly. The evening is calm, golden lights spilling through the curtains. Alan laughs. Everything's going smoothly. What a peaceful evening, which of course is the universe's cue to ruin everything. That night, far below the surface, robed figures gather in a drug den soaked with blood and incense. The eldest of the Palazzo family is generous. One says, counting bodies as if they're coins. Our organization grows stronger. A strange hum fills the air. One man twitches, his hand jerking like a puppet's. My hand, it's moving on its own. He screams as his sword swings, cutting through allies. Panic spreads, blood sprays. Another laughs hysterically before collapsing, face twisting into a smile he didn't choose. The cult leader watches, amused. I enjoyed the puppet show of the day, he says, holding strings of light that pulse like veins. Above him, Deos appears in shadow, half possessed. His voice colder than the moon. Is there any point in this? He asks the woman beside him, the same silver-haired figure. Do you pity them? She replies. No, he answers. They grind people to make drugs. I just don't know if this has anything to do with my revenge. She smiles, cruel and tender. Of course it does. This is how we make space for him to return. Power ignites. Pink energy swirling like a storm. So, she says, feel the power you're bestowed with. Let your potential be unleashed. The sky splits open. Purple light flooding the earth. Symbols forming across the city like veins of a god waking beneath the ground. Everything will proceed according to his will. She whispers as the cult chants. We the blue moon shall be his sword. And GT. It's been 2 years since he started writing to UIA, and in that time his world has shifted quietly like dust settling after a storm. The estate stands tall under a calm sky. The kind of morning where nothing feels wrong until Evan comes crashing into the scene, panting and flustered, yelling from the halls like a lost courier. The young master sigh, already knowing what kind of chaos his butler stumbled into this time. Out back, Evan lies sprawled on the grass, groaning in defeat, and the young master, ever composed, greets him with that dry tone only someone long used to nonsense can muster. It's been years since their journey began, and in that time, he saved 3 of the remaining sins, each one a disaster wrapped in human form. Greed, in particular, nearly broke him figuratively and literally. But with patience and maybe too much game knowledge, he turned Evan into a halfway decent ally. Now, over tea and exhaustion, he tells Evan to rest, that everything's been handled, the funds for the orphanage sent, the last mission complete. Evan salutes him from the ground, grinning weakly, and the young master forces a smile that's as convincing as a cardboard cutout. Later, as sunlight spills through the garden, he rests in the grass, staring at the clouds with a rare sense of peace. He reflects on the bosses of psychedelia, how they became the five sins, scarred and broken by their pasts, saving them before their corruption wasn't supposed to be possible. Yet somehow he did it. The orphanage thrives now, its children once lifeless, now laughing under gentle skies. He receives a letter from Yusha, the girl he'd been helping from afar. A letter full of warmth, teasing words, and small reassurances. She's managing the children, keeping them safe. He chuckles softly. Didn't think she'd pull it off so well. For a fleeting moment, he almost feels human again. But that thought vanishes as Evan mentions the Blue Moon, an organization rising fast, hunting down crime and filth. The young master barely looks up from his tea, scoffing. Never heard of them. Probably won't last long. Yet Evan's tone shifts. He's heard rumors. They're killing nobles now. The young master freezes for a moment, then quietly orders him to sleep beside his room from now on, just in case. Elsewhere, the blue moon gathers beneath a silver sky. Yusha stands at its head, eyes glinting with zeal beneath the glow of the great moon. Around her stand the other sins, reborn and loyal, their faces solemn. We exist for the sake of his will, she says, voice echoing through the dark chamber. But her words tremble as Rini, the sin of greed, steps forward, holding a piece of parchment. It carries a single damning message. After the count dies, slowly poison him to kill him. Yusha's smile fades. Her eyes bleed red and the air crackles with rage. I see, she whispers before the room erupts in scarlet light. 2 years pass. The Count Palacio, his father, is dead. Officially, they call it heart failure, but he knows better. Overdose, poison, Blue Moon's work. The funeral is cold, silent, without a single mourner who truly cared. Whispers fill the air. Rumors, fear, quiet disdain. He watches, detached, as the nobles trade pleasantries over the coffin. The world feels heavier than before, drenched in secrets. He and Evan pack their things. We're gonna run, he says, not away from guilt, but away from rot. Their carriage departs south toward a quiet town called Rodmile. Warm sunlight bathes the road, leaves rustling in farewell. For a few days, peace returns. He makes breakfast, shares idle jokes with Evan, almost lets himself believe life has slowed down. And then in 3 days, he returns to find his brother's funeral again. He stands before the same marble halls, disbelief etched across his face. He died at a different time. Why is he already dead? The corpse lies pale, stabbed through the heart. A servant mutters about the cause, but before he can finish, guards freeze mid-sentence, trembling in terror. I apologize for looking at you. They stammer. The young master blinks, confused, realizing that every eye in the room looks at him, not with pity, but fear. Evan approaches cautiously, voice low. Young master, are you the one who made Avalon vanish overnight? The world goes silent. His expression darkens. He doesn't answer because maybe even he doesn't know anymore. As murmurs ripple through the hall, he takes a single step forward, the floor cracking beneath his heel. He mutters softly, half to himself, half to the ghosts watching him. Because just before this funeral, on the day he left for Rodme, all the pieces of his careful meta-strategy quietly slid into place. Back then, the sky burned with sunset as a carriage rattled away from the Palatial estate. Evan seated across from him, politely suggesting that a proper city might be a wiser destination. And Alan, all easy grin and stubborn confidence, dismissing the idea at once. Rodmill, he insists, is the final destination he has calculated, the one place safely outside the rails of the original story. Close enough to observe, far enough to live, and perfectly positioned for his long game of saving the 5 sins and strangling misfortune before it hatches. Images of those rescued kids laughing over a picnic flare through his thoughts. That orphanage of once broken dolls now warmed under gentle light. And Rodmill below them, bright and bustling with markets and villas. A peaceful corner the scenario never cared about. It is, he tells himself, the ideal stage for a lazy, noble life where he can quietly stack advantages while doing nothing that looks like work. And GT, back at the estate, Leo leans over a balcony rail as the carriage grows small, hand tense, eyes cold, running through his own arithmetic. Whether he should kill that brother now or later, whether it matters if the boy lives when poison was already in the plan after their father's death, and why, despite all of that, Alan's existence bothers him so much. The calculations taste wrong. A shadow of unease pushes him to give a simple order. Follow the carriage. The man who steps forward is Alman, his loyal hound in the dark. Except this time, loyalty cracks. He asks if Leo truly wants Alan dead. And that tiny question, coming from a man who has never questioned anything, freezes Leo in place. Suspicion flashes, then arrogance smothers it as he snaps back that obeying is Alman's only job. But by the time the words leave his mouth, iron blooms through his chest. The balcony becomes a hanging gallows as Alman's dagger wreathed in eerie light punches through him. And Leo's outrage of betrayal is cut short by the soft announcement that this was all just a game to his killer. Under the rising blue moon, the mask finally lifts. Alman is Hyen, agent of Blue Moon, the cult that worships the great moon and claims the right to prune the world. While Leo's blood trails down the stone, his subordinates rush in only to be carved apart with clinical cruelty. He hidden musing about the creed passed down from the Red Moon and the rule that anyone threatening their lord will be erased. No orders required. The balcony becomes an altar. And with a single clean strike, the Palatial succession crisis, the Avalon Count alliance and Alan's future tormentor all vanish into the night. Far from that carnage, Rodmill rises with a golden morning, and Alan greets it like a man on an all-inclusive vacation. He wakes when he wants, eats what he wants, and lives like the noble he never got to be in his past life, critiquing his own toast like a potential business venture. While Evan looks on, equal parts attendant and exhausted straight man. For 4 days, his exile is heaven, until a letter lands with the weight of a system notification nobody asked for. The free trial ends. Count Palazzo is dead. The timeline has jumped the rails. Alan returns to the estate to find a cold funeral hall, hushed gossip, and a coffin that closes more than a father's life. It seals away the script he thought he knew. Leo, they say, was murdered after Alan left. And the details are wrong. The poisoning plan he remembers is gone, replaced by a blade through the heart and a vanished assassin, while whispers coil around Alan himself. The conveniently absent brother, the one untouched by suspicion, the one standing where the heir's seat now waits. Even Evan, calmly listing the facts, accidentally builds a perfect villain profile for him. Avalon has been wiped out in a single brutal strike. The Count is dead, Leo removed, and Alan, allegedly innocent, is the only one who benefits. The world looks at him and quietly draws its own conclusions. Under that pressure, he starts counting the discrepancies. Blue Moon, he knows, leaves a mark instead of a corpse when they work. And yet, Leo and the Avalon rats were done in by steel, not sigils. The Information Guild claims Blue Moon wasn't involved. No organization he remembers should be able to erase Avalon overnight and silence Leo mid-sea. If it isn't the cult, if it isn't the game's script, then someone else is moving in the dark. And that realization bites deeper than any accusation. Somewhere far from the estate, the Real architects gather. The silver-haired priestess of the great moon smiles through a crimson haze as Solong, Rain, Raiden, and the others report in. No traces at the sites, only corpses where slave traders and test grounds once stood. 486 Avalon soldiers left breathing, just as instructed. Their numbers hauled to, but not yet erase. Because even destruction here is being rationed with intent. In 5 days, the proud organization that lorded over Asteria has been ground to ash. Its noble partners quietly tagged. Among those files lies the Alida dukedom, bound tightly to Avalon. And when that is mentioned, her eyes narrow with satisfied malice. She does not need to voice the order. Everyone present already knows. Their blades will keep moving until every hidden route is cut. One last figure, radiant with cold light, steps forward and pledges to handle the next phase quietly. A phantom war to be fought beneath Alan's feet, while the world above mistakes him for the spider at the center. And so, while he stands in his black suit at the funeral, feeling the floor crack under the weight of a fate he thought he'd hacked, unseen hands and devoted lunatics have already rewritten the board. Their intel support confirms the guilds are treating the situation as a separate incident, pinning it on a wild sword instead of Blue Moon. Perfect disposable cover. The priestess reminds them this was not an official order. They are swords. Swords do not think. They only move according to him, the great moon, the one who knows everything, the one they must never disappoint. But since that person's family was targeted first, since poison grazed their orbit, they consider it self-defense. Cut back to Alan, who did not ask for a fanatical private army and is now paying for it in paperwork. After the funeral, his life is one long. Young master, please sign this. Leo's death has jumped 6 years ahead of schedule, so all the late game responsibilities have respawned on his desk at once. He is supposed to be enjoying a slow, noble difficulty curve, but instead he is buried alive under ledgers. He looks up and notices something insane. Everyone is working. Not pretend working. Actual working. When his father was alive, these people were idle. Now they sprint. Why, he wonders. Because every time he zones out with a tired expression, the servants read it as he is displeased. And the rumor mill translates possibly framed for murder into definitely a terrifying mastermind. Nobody wants to be the one the scary new count quietly makes disappear. Alan just wants them to competently handle logistics, so he can lie down. Instead, he has accidentally unlocked fear-based efficiency, so he turns to magic. If the world thinks he is dangerous anyway, he might as well try to survive. Training with Evan goes suspiciously well. His mana control is sharp. His spells are refined. His growth rate is absurd. Evan comments that reaching this level in this time is astonishing. Hence, his natural aptitude is high. For a moment, Alan thinks, fine, maybe this is his cheat. Maybe effort plus talent will let him brute force through rerouted death flags. Then he actually analyzes his mono owl. Tiny. Insanely tiny. My mono owl is insanely tiny, he realizes, staring at the diagram like it personally insulted him. Incapacity is like a weight class, and he has the stats of a gifted child trying to solo a raid boss. All his impressive magic so far has been squeezed out of a thimble. If things keep escalating half-baked, but hard-working is not going to cut it. If raw power is capped, he needs strategy, gear, people, every bit of meta he remembers. Right as he is thinking that, he gets an invitation. A southern aristocratic ball, the noble exchange. Perfect, he tells himself. I will build connections, secure allies, stabilize my future. Very normal, very adult. He arrives in full formal gear, walks in, and the room politely splits like he is carrying the plague. To them, he is the quiet heir whose monstrous brothers are dead, whose criminally entangled house survived, whose timing matches Avalon's annihilation a little too closely. He tries anyway. He uses his social skill, compliments wines, mentions specific estates, plays the charming connoisseur. One poor guy panics so hard at the idea of sending a few bottles to the Palatial estate that he basically sprints off to offer his entire brand. Others laugh too loud, bow too deep, back away. Evan points out his loot pile keeps growing, luxury goods stacking up like drops, while Alan realizes he has successfully rebranded himself as someone you do business with but absolutely do not casually chat with. His conclusion is simple and correct. His social life is ruined. He escapes to the balcony, leans on the railing, and quietly wonders where it all went wrong. That is when a voice actually calls out to him, soft, polite, unafraid. He startles because at this point, anyone willingly approaching him in a secluded place is either very brave or very bugged. The girl introduces herself as Loria, third daughter of Duke Altia. Alia, the northern troublemakers, one of the 3 big shadow houses from the game. Absolutely not the kind of surname you want wandering into your personal space. Alan runs his mental database. Nothing. This girl never appeared. No route, no event, no mention, which means one of 2 things. The story is glitching, or she is carrying something the original scenario never covered. And, based on his life so far, it is not going to be a fruit basket. She looks him straight in the eye and says she will be blunt. Good. He thinks he is tired of side quests pretending to be accidents. She asks him sincerely to lend her his strength. Every instinct tells him this is a flag. She does not back down. Under the moonlight, framed by music bleeding in from the ballroom behind them, she tells him she's going to be assassinated soon. And just like that, House Altia, Blue Moon's new file, and the broken script collide neatly in his lap. Alan leaves the balcony with Loria Altia's desperate plea still hanging in the night air. A neat little prophecy of murder wrapped in lace. The sick duke, the rabid sisters, the bastard daughter they're about to erase, and her offer to hand over half the Altia fortune if he saves her. He reads her situation in an instant, even recognizes why she never appeared in the game. He remembers she was already a corpse by the time the story began. Sympathy flickers, but survival wins. He politely declines, turns his back, and in his head admits he can barely manage his own death flags, let alone adopt someone else's. On a nearby rooftop, cloaked fanatics of the moons quietly confirm the intel. Loria is the only Altia not tied to Avalon, so she's exempt from their kill list. Everyone else in that northern nest gets marked for cleanup, and whatever happened with Avalon is to be sealed away from that person at all costs. Loria is left alone with her fear and a useless blessing that the narrator very helpfully notes will not age well. The ball continues, and Alan discovers an impressive new magic. Social crowd control. Nobles orbit the hall in dazzling clusters. Yet there's a clean exclusion zone around him like he's cursed, or worse, about to network. He wonders if he's giving off villain radiation. Steels himself to socialize. And the first person to approach is naturally the Western underworld's favorite problem. The red dress, the snake fan, the amused eyes. Kalia Zenonia, eldest daughter of House Zenonia, the troublemaker of the West, whose family operates less like nobility and more like a corporate mafia with branding.